Hello and welcome to this special edition of Offshore Investing, where we're going to be looking at Portugal. Malcolm Lobban is our host today. He is the director of Alex Living. Those of you who were with us in August last year, Malcolm, jeepers, it feels like a different lifetime, doesn't it? When we had our last webinar.
Yeah. No, time flies. I can't believe it. It's nearly a year ago, but lovely to be back on and presenting to your subscribers, Alec. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, the business community has certainly picked up the opportunity with both hands, and we've got lots to talk about later. Malcolm, I'm going to hand over to you, and you've got quite an illustrious group of fellow presenters and a beautiful picture. I don't think I've seen a nicer picture than that. I'll be in the background, and every time you need a slide to be pushed forward, just say, hey, a slide operator, next slide, please. And I'll do that. And I'll also be picking up questions. Just to let you know, guys, that there is a little box at the bottom of the on your screen, and you can click on that and type in your questions. There's no unmuting. There are hundreds of people literally on this webinar, so it would be crazy if we unmuted everybody. So as a consequence, the way we handle questions is for you to type them in at the bottom. Before we start, though, let's just make 100% sure that everybody can hear us. There is a hand signal or a high five signal. Would you mind raising your hand there or clicking on it to make sure that we can see, that you can hear us, rather?
Perfect, Alec. You got lots of high fives there.
Great, thanks, Stu. Stuart, have I left anything else out as far as the technicals are concerned, or can we kick off?
No, Alec, all good on the housekeeping. You can fly away.
Fabulous. I see those high fives are now really rushing through. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. No more high fives. You hear us loud and clear. Malcolm Lobban, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Alec. Yeah, so I can introduce my fellow panelists. First of all, my partner, Bradley, who's moved across to Lisbon 15 months ago and is happily on site today, and we're going to hear lots from Bradley Parker. Bradley comes a long way with Johnny Raby, who's of course our most important partner in New World. So welcome to you, Brad. Then we're very privileged and grateful for the introduction and the participation of both Lia and Rui. Lia is a very well-respected and experienced financial advisor based in the beautiful part of Lisbon, and you're going to hear a lot from Lia. So welcome, Lia. Lovely to have you with us. Lia is a partner of New World in the sense of somebody who brings us a lot of expertise and helps our clients. Rui, equally, Rui, welcome. Lovely to have you on board with us. Rui is based in Johannesburg, like myself, but has strong roots in Portugal and a great understanding of the tax regime and financial immigration issues associated with moving to Portugal and or investing in that beautiful country. So with that, no further ado, we've got a few slides. We're going to run through them as quickly as we can so that we get to the point where, most importantly, the BIS community can fire questions at us, and Alec will make sure we provide the right answers, the accurate answers. So first, over to you, Lia. A couple of slides about why Portugal. Just your thoughts, please.
Okay, apologies. It looks like we need to just unmute Lia quickly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Good morning,
I think
everybody.
we have some bullet points
Thank
on
you
the
very much, Malcolm, for the nice introduction. And I'm going to speak a little bit about Portugal. I'm the only Portuguese person here, so excuse my English. It might not be very correct, but I'll do my best. Anyway, so why invest in Portugal? Well, Portugal being very small, having owned half of the world.
Sorry, Alec, can you give us the next slide? I beg your pardon, Lia.
No problem. Oh, okay. So basically, like I was saying, being a very small world, a very small country, as in fact being the owner of the world, as we all know, and this has given us this tolerance and this very welcoming spirit, and we do have a great pleasure in receiving people from all cultures and all over the world. Like I said, we were a very tolerant country, and in that sense, we are depending on the experts, but we are between the third and the fourth safest country in the world. There is no crime in the sense of crime. Of course, you have the odd pickpocket, sorry, pickpockets on the subway maybe, and even those they are not Portuguese, you know, because of the European Union, they tend to be from other nationalities, not Portuguese. But there is no problem walking around any city in Portugal at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4. It's, you know, all very safe. Having said that, we are also the oldest country, which means in Europe, so which means we don't have any conflicts with our neighbors. We don't have terrorism. And above everything else, I think that we are very proud because, like I said in the beginning, being the smallest country, we are nevertheless a number 2 country in oncology research in the world. We have one of the best health, private and state health system. The food, as you know, it's to die for. The famous PDPD, as you know, in South Africa, comes from Portugal, and everybody also speaks English. You know, some better,
Great.
but you'll be okay. Everybody knows how, so you'll be very happy here and feeling very.
Thank you very much. Can you have the next slide, Alec? Thank you.
Being a very small country, obviously has its pros and it has its cons. One of the most difficult problem in Portugal at the moment is that it's highly being searched for by foreigners, and also we've always been the retirement, you would call it the Florida of Europe. So a lot of people want to retire in Portugal. So there is a lot of issues with property. When I say property, it's available property. There's a lot of demand, and the offer gets small and small and small and smaller. Also, there is a lot of demand for rental stock. Why? For you to have an idea, Lisbon is the World Summit capital. So when the Web Summit is on, we have like 7 to 10 million people coming into the city, and obviously there is no room for these people to stay. There's a lot. We also have 10 of our top universities in the world 20 best universities, which means there's a lot of foreign students coming over for masters and doctorships and so on. And on top of all of this, we also have 2 things which I think I have to mention because they're really, really important if you're looking to invest in this country. One is the Euribor. The Euribor has been for 4 years now at negative rate, which means that when we're talking about you investing at 1%, we are being the Euribor negative minus 30 basis points, which means that you will get your financing around 80 basis, which is very, very good. Money is very, very cheap. The other thing, which I think is very important, is the fact that with the COVID and the way the Portuguese authorities took care of the matter, in fact, there is a lot of demand for people that initially were looking at Spain and Italy, and now, after what happened, which everybody knows about it, right? They have like moved or shift their interest in Portugal and mainly into Lisbon and Lisbon, and the country is very small and there's a lot of demand.
Okay, thank you, Lia. Thank you. That's a very important point that you shared with us just the other day, is this wonderful management of the COVID crisis in Portugal has had a big positive impact on demand for property. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you for all those insights, Lia. That's really, really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this slide is really just speaks for itself. It's 3 independent reports that we've received in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Knights Frank, which refers to Lisbon as one of only 4 cities around the globe expecting that positive price growth in 2020. Obviously a nominal price growth, but nevertheless no negativity forecast for this calendar year. This is a very interesting article from Forbes magazine, which talks to Lia's point about the retirement attraction of Portugal, and particularly the Algarve. And then the updated PwC annual report, which keeps Lisbon in the top 10 of emerging markets, European cities around Europe. Next slide, please, Alec. So what we're going to do now is just show you a video of our project and then talk to it, which is right in the heart of Lisbon. So if we could move to the next slide, Alec, thank you.
Alex Living is a brand new mixed-use development in Amoreiras, a sought-after residential neighborhood in central Lisbon. This prime location is just a short stroll from the prestigious Avenida da Liberdade in the heart of the city's gracious, spacious CBD. Greenfield developments in this area are extremely rare. The striking contemporary building, designed by one of Europe's leading architects, features dramatic cantilevered balconies and consists of 151 luxury apartments, ground floor retail, a landscaped internal plaza, 2 swimming pools, a gym, a day spa, and 2 restaurants. The building has been masterfully designed to integrate into the existing urban fabric, providing pedestrian access through several entrances into a publicly accessible landscape plaza, which will provide access to the ground floor shops and restaurants. The 151 apartments of Alex Living are arranged in 2 separate buildings linked by a landscaped internal plaza and are serviced by 5 separate lift shafts. The mix of apartment types has been carefully compiled to meet the needs of the market. All apartments will feature spacious contemporary living areas, open-plan kitchens, and luxury finishes. All residents, owners, and tenants alike will have full use of a suite of amenities and services usually found in luxury hotels. Ample underground parking, 2 restaurants and a bar, a rooftop garden and deck, various lounges, pause areas, and meeting spaces, and high-speed fiber connectivity throughout the building. This project is being co-developed by GMG Real Estate and New World, the international real estate development company owned by John Raby. A sales suite has been erected on the site, and demolition works began in October 2019. We fully expect to be sold out on this project well in advance of completion.
Thank you, Alec. The next slide. So we're very proud to introduce our project, Alex Living. You would recognize the voice of Matthew Pierce, who we're very pleased to work with. Matthew spends quite a bit of time at Skybound Capital, down the bottom of the slide. Skybound Capital, a global wealth management company with $1 billion under management, are partners in our development. They've worked closely over many years with GMG Real Estate. GMG Real Estate in itself been around for 15 years. It's done €1 billion of development in various cities in and around Europe, being London, Germany, Switzerland, and most recently in Portugal. They've done extraordinarily well, closed out on about €400 million of their projects to date on a very successful basis. And they invited Johnny Raby and his team from New World to work with them on Alex Living. One of Johnny Raby, of course, everybody knows in South Africa, great pedigree and experience as a developer, has brought a lot of value into this development. Brad and I are pleased to be part of his team in New World, and Brad is going to talk to us now a little bit about the background of Raby Properties and Signature in South Africa and how relevant it is to what we're doing in Lisbon. Brad, over to you. We don't have the sound, Brad.
Okay, can you hear me? Sorry. Someone muted me.
Brad, my apologies. I was the one pressing all the mute buttons. Just a small thing here. We have had a couple of people coming to us and saying, "Can you bring your microphone when you talk a little closer to your mouth, because we're battling to get the sound there." Thanks, Lia. Brad, over to you.
Thanks, Alec. As Malcolm alluded to earlier, John Robbie is very well known in South Africa. Obviously, starting Robbie property over 40 years ago. Probably the most notable development, should I say, is Century City, where they've been working for 15, 20 years, and they've completed over 1 million square meters of bulk. And around 2012, John Robbie was bored, I suppose, I don't know, decided to venture out further into the city of Cape Town and started Signatura, and that's where I came in. I've been working with John Robbie for the last 8-9 years, and we've completed well over 27 projects, selling around 30 billion rands worth of real estate in Cape Town. That's a little quick history of Robbie. Obviously, there's a lot more to tell. And as Malcolm said, New World, we started at the beginning of last year when GMG approached us. I think it's important to note our culture is very hands-on, and that's why I have moved to Lisbon with my wife, and we live just down the road, literally 2 kilometers from where I'm sitting right now. And our offices we share with GMG on Avenida de Bladad, which I'll point out on the tour that we have a little bit later, but that's also about 1 kilometer from where I am right now. That's a quick history. Thanks, Malcolm.
Good, thank you. Next slide, Alec. Please. Right, so now it's time for us to just get a quick snapshot from Roy around the Golden Visa program in Portugal. If you just share with us, Roy, thank you.
Thanks, Malcolm, and thanks for the invitation to be one of the panelists. Thank you very much. Yeah, so a couple of years ago, around about 2012, 2014, the Portuguese government wanted to attract foreign investment into the country after the financial slums that Portugal found itself in, and introduced the Golden Visa program. The one most notable for this audience is the 500,000 euro acquisition of a property anywhere in Portugal. What that does is opens up a Schengen visa for you. So you get your residence, it's a temporary residence for 5 years. And once you've concluded all the paperwork and the red tape, and you've done the requirements that the Golden Visa program stipulates, you can then apply for a Portuguese passport. You probably have to write a Portuguese language test, which is equivalent to a grade 2 language, what you'd learn in grade 2. So, and for those 5 years, you get a Schengen visa. So you can travel within the 26, I think it's 26 countries within the European Union freely without having to apply for travel permits or visas, etc. The 500,000 euro, obviously with the rand going down the last couple of months, it's more in line, you'll see in a later slide, it's more or less in line with what the foreign investment allowance allows you to take out of South Africa. The Reserve Bank allows you to take out 10 million rand. You would need to get a tax clearance. And it's very important that this 500,000, it's physical cash that it has to enter Portugal. So you are allowed to buy a property worth €1 million, but you have to so you can bond the other 500,000, but you physically have to take 500,000 euros into the country. And once you have your residence, you have the same benefits as any other Portuguese national. So you have access to schooling, you have access to healthcare, you can join a union if you want to. You literally become, I'll say, almost a Portuguese citizen for those 5 years.
Thank you very much, Roy. Next slide, Alec. I'm sure we'll get questions later on, which no doubt you'll be able to field. Over to you, Brad. Just the location of our development.
Sorry, before you start, Malcolm, we have got a pile of questions, just to let you know. Okay. So don't worry about that. There's a lot of interest here. So as soon as you guys are finished, plenty of interesting stuff. But now I think we're having a tour now, aren't we, Brad?
We're not
doing the tour right now, but I'll get to that very quickly. So I think that tour will touch on a lot of the aspects on this slide. We haven't just centered the photograph so that we are in the center of it. It actually is very, very much the center of where we are in Lisbon. You can see the Tagus River right in front of you. To the right is Cascais, and if you go where that aeroplane is, if you can see it on the picture, that's the direction of the Algarve. And where our site is, we're basically 15 minutes from the airport. And like I said earlier, 1 kilometer down to Avenida Liberdade, which is very, very close and well located. I think that's it for now. We can touch on the tour a little bit later.
Okay, next slide.
All right, I'll carry on talking to this, Malcolm. So just a very quick summary, 150 apartments. The buildings are actually separated in two, as said there. It's actually the main building, which you'll see in the picture that you'll see there, is 8 floors. It's a mixed use development. We have approximately 1,300 square meters of retail on the ground floor. So we're selling lifestyle, not just apartments. The idea is that we'll have restaurants flowing over into the internal courtyard, and we'll have a rooftop bar on the top of that building that you'll see in the foreground. And then there's an indoor swimming pool and a spa that we're also going to be building in the other building, which is around the corner, which I'll try to touch on in the tour later. In terms of the parking, it's a very important selling tool. Portugal it's very hard to come by parking. I live down the road. I don't have any parking in my apartment, so it's a massive aspect. The Portuguese love their cars. They love driving, even though the metro, etc., is very good, and the public transport, which we'll touch on a little bit later. They still do like their cars. Leah's laughing because she knows exactly what I mean. So next slide. Roy, I think you wanted to touch on a few aspects first.
Yeah, just Roy, if you can just give us the update. This is a very exciting development which is going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years. Over to you, Roy.
Yeah, so the center of Lisbon, if you look at, compare it to Cape Town or Johannesburg, there is a metro line that feeds most of Lisbon. It's not like your underground in the UK or Paris. There's literally only 4 lines with very limited stops. However, the good news is the line that runs from the airport, which you can see on the screen, is going to be extended. It currently stops at the blue line that you can see called San Sebastian. And next year, from October, I think it is 2021 till 2024, they are going to be extending it with another 4 or 5 stops. And the great news is that the first stop of the extension will be right outside Alex living in Amoreiras.
Okay, thanks.
So just to add to that,
yeah.
Just to add to that, Malcolm, we are sitting in the marketing suite as I'm speaking right now, and the entrance will basically be right where I am right now, which is basically on the doorstep of our project.
And I understand, Roy, that the authorities have announced they're raising 400 million euros to do this project. Is that right?
Correct. So the project's going out to tender in October. Funding is going to obviously come from the European Union. It's around about 400 million, and they're expected to start next year, 2021, and finish in 2024.
Thank you. Thanks, Alec. Yeah, I think this is a very important slide for our investors. We're offering for all apartments under the 650,000 euro price tag a 4% rental guarantee for 2 years. And then Lia will confirm with us the access to end user finance for foreigners up to 75% of purchase price. Clearly, as Roy mentioned earlier, if you're buying a golden visa, you have to invest 500,000 euros, and then you can leverage on top of that, and we can talk about that later on. But the beauty is that right now you're accessing funding at as little as 1% fixed and 80 bips floating. So we're getting leveraged yields up and around 10% at the moment. And then on top of that, the opportunity for a visa. This is why we believe it's a very, very compelling investment proposition. Brad, just talk to this slide if you would.
All right, so just to go back in history a little bit, we launched the project in April last year in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and then a month later in Lisbon. We've sold to date around 110 apartments, so we believe we've sold very well. The demolition we completed in January this year, That's an old pic that you'll see now there on the picture. The containers and everything are now sitting up on site. I'll do a tour later and you'll see some more activity on site. We managed to appoint the main contractor and hand over site last week, which is quite a feat in the COVID situation. I've never done a contract of this value under Zoom conditions before, but we've learned how to do that. So it definitely was a learning curve. Then in terms of PH, what is PH? That is property horizontals for South Africans. That's essentially a sectional title scheme being registered. And in order to register for the Golden Visa, you need that document to continue. And we are expecting that document to be available August, September this year. The delivery of the apartments, as I said, we've appointed the contractor. The contractor is Alves Ribeiro. They've got a 26-month contract, and we are going to be handing over apartments starting in March 2022, or call it Q1 and Q2 of 2022, and we'll do it in a staggered approach. There are all of our units that are available on our websites. If you go on there, we've got an in-house sales team in South Africa and in Lisbon, and you can go and see what is available and get hold of us. Just to note, there are 12 one-bedroom apartments that are available around the 500 range, which is your Golden Visa entry point. And just want to highlight that to everyone. Thanks, Malcolm.
Over to you, Roy.
Let's just change the screen. So just a quick one on investing in Portugal. Like I said, as a South African resident, we governed by our Reserve Bank, which allows you a 1 million rand discretionary foreign investment allowance. And if you can go up to 10 million, you need to apply for a tax clearance. So the 500,000 apartments fall within this bracket. So that would be easy for you to externalize your funds. There is a double taxation agreement that governs the tax status of South African residents and which jurisdiction should be taxing the resident, whether South Africa or Portugal. Important thing to note is, as a non-resident, your tax rate is 28% in Portugal. So you are allowed your levies, your rates and taxes, commissions, repairs and maintenance as deductions. One notable difference between Portugal and South Africa is that you are not allowed to deduct your interest charge, but considering that the interest might be 8%, 0.8% or 1%, it's really negligible. But as a South African resident, you would pay tax in Portugal of 28%, and you then need to declare that to South African sources. The municipal rates and taxes works differently in Portugal than it does in South Africa. It works in arrears, annually in arrears, based on a municipal valuation, and it's a quarterly. It depends on the value of your property, but you either pay it quarterly, twice a year, or 3 times a year. Interesting to note is that you are able to. There is Portuguese representative banks in South Africa. They're not a walk-in bank; it's representation offices. But you are allowed to apply for a Portuguese bank account in South Africa, and they will obtain a tax number for you as well. So there's no need to go to Portugal to open up a bank account. And we also, as a non-resident, you need to apply. You need to appoint a Portuguese national to be your tax representative. That's one important thing. So South Africans would realize that in South Africa, you have something called a public officer. In Portugal, you have a tax representative. So if you are going to buy property in Portugal or invest in Portugal as a non-resident, you do have to appoint someone in Portugal to be your tax representative.
So if I could just pick up, Alec, because I'm sure this question will come later, and Roy can confirm my understanding. In terms of the double tax agreement, the investor from South Africa would pay tax of, let's call it 28%, as Roy explained, in Portugal. And then when he or she prepares the tax return in South Africa, you will get relief on that 28% that you paid. So your tax payable in South Africa will be calculated and then reduced by the amount of tax that you've already paid in Portugal. That's the double tax treaty between the two countries. Can we go to the next slide? And it says, thank you. So if we can hand over to Brad, I see he's out on the street about to show us exactly where our development is. Over to you.
And we have got a lot of questions, guys. So Brad, looking forward to this tour.
I'm going to make it quick as I can, Alec. So I'm standing opposite our site. You'll see a marketing board and a marketing suite right there. That's where I was sitting earlier. If I zoom
Can you
just
hold
a
on
little
a
bit to
second,
the...
Brad? Can we hold on a second? Is it possible we can get rid of the slideshow and have Brad's tour in the main body? Is that possible?
You are talking to a technique. Well, I'm doing my best. Put it that way.
Cool. Sorry. Carry on, Brad.
Okay, so you'll see the wall on your running down the street. That's actually our boundary. And our site is everything to the left of that. You'll see some tall towers in the background. Very well known Amarera shopping center is just there, literally 3 minutes walk from where we are right now.
We've lost you, Brad.
Well, it was a good try. I guess bandwidth, no matter where you are in the world, is a bit of a challenge. Brad,
go down this road. Yes.
We're not reading you, Brad. Yeah.
Just we'll give you another 30 seconds, but it looks like your bandwidth is gone there, Brad.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you see me now?
I think go back into the hut, Brad, if you don't mind. We're losing you there.
Okay.
Right. Well, good try. And unfortunately, I suppose the best, what do they call it? The best laid plans of mice
and men. Yeah.
Mice and men. Okay, great. I'll just give me a couple of seconds and I'll get us back to the pretty slide, Malcolm. How about that? We'll go to the first one. Okay. Can I start giving you a few of the questions, because there really are, there's a heck of a lot that's come through here. I'm not sure how many we'll get through in the next 25 minutes, but we'll do our best. David Lewis asks, please clarify the requirement to speak Portuguese once you reach your 5-year term and apply for your passport. I know that you did mention, Roy, that you've got to qualify at a grade 2 level, but what about speaking?
So it's a language test. I'll put it to you this way. From experience, if you're not going to go live in Portugal during those 5 years, it'll be very hard to pick up the Portuguese language. I've been speaking it my whole life and I still make mistakes. There's a lot of tenses. The grade 2 level, it's a reading and writing test. So you have to be able to converse in it. So the requirement to get the residence, you don't have to speak Portuguese. It's just a requirement if you want to apply for a Portuguese passport. After the 5 years, you become a Portuguese resident. You just don't get a passport. I don't know if that answers the question.
Can I just for clarity? So in other words, you get the golden visa when you make the investment, and you can use that visa to travel Europe for 5 years. After the 5 years, you can apply for a passport, and then you need to talk.
And you become a permanent resident. So you get residency in Portugal. You just don't get a passport. If you want to apply for the passport, you have to do the language exam.
Excellent. Jamil Banu.
Alec, there are, Roy, correct me, in Pretoria, and I'm no doubt in Cape Town, there's ways to do this testing. They reckon about 20 hours of work in the final year will get you over the line with the test. We've had lots of feedback from people who've done it. It's sort of like a multiple choice process, and I think for most clients it's been not an issue. If you don't make it first time, you can always have another go. But the Portuguese people, and Lia will confirm this, will find every reason to make it accessible and not a huge hardship. It's actually not that difficult.
So I just want to add one more thing. Is there are rumors and there is talk that they might be doing away with that Portuguese test. It's not legislation yet, but it has been appearing in certain newspapers, etc., that they are looking at relaxing the Portuguese exam.
Yeah, here's a pretty technical question, but have a go. How will the new government changes that will restrict GV investments, Golden Visa investments in Lisbon and Porto, impact Golden Visa eligibility in your upcoming property investment, specifically because you are in the Lisbon market, and how will it affect property prices going forward in Lisbon and Porto?
Can I answer the first part and then leave it to my colleagues? It's a very important question, Alec. There have been some talk about golden visa changes, and effectively the government is looking to divert a lot of foreign investment into other parts of the country. At the moment, it's very much concentrated in Lisbon and Porto. But the latest post-COVID, sadly, all governments are having to rethink what they were doing pre-COVID. And the latest feedback we're getting is that the chances of this change happening in the near term is highly unlikely, and in fact might never happen, as all European countries and countries around the world seek foreign investment. Regarding Alex Living, though, we're very confident that this won't affect our GV golden visa buyers. They will be able to go through the process, as Brad pointed out, in August, September, when we get the HP approval. Application starts, and we're very confident our golden visa buyers who've already committed with us and into the future will be able to access their visa. Going forward, I think it's speculation, but maybe, Lia, you want to make a comment around what you think is going to happen with the golden visa, perhaps in 21 and 2022 into the future.
Yes, I think that the reduction of the value from 500.
Put your mic up a bit. We're just not hearing you.
Sorry, not a very technological person. Sorry, apologize.
Other side. Here we go. Okay.
Okay. So, in my opinion, this was all was something that was more political than anything else, and it was political parties in the Portuguese Parliament that were pushing that we should, make an effort to develop the other areas of the country, i.e., make the new investment to the other, less fortunate, I would call it, cities in Portugal. With COVID, I think this is going to change. We were highly affected, even though we responded very, very effectively, and we are praised for it, and I think that we did do a good job. But I think that Portugal, being not a very industrialized country, needs services and it needs also foreign investment. We're a very technological country. I mean, we were the first country in the whole world to have the hole in the wall where you, as you say it, and where you could buy and pay your taxes and buy a ticket to the theater. So this investment needs to come in. And post-COVID, I think it's a non-issue.
Jamil Banu asks, do you offer a full hands-off property management solution for long-term property management after the property is purchased? And what is the expected gross and net rental yields?
So what we do, Alec, is we offer for those folks buying it under 650,000 euros, we're offering a 2-year long-term rental guaranteed return, hands-off, exactly as in the question. For folks buying above 650,000 euros, we are in discussion with various property managers who are keen to provide the support. Bear in mind that just down the road from our development is one of the top French international schools, lots of high net worth families that are looking for rental accommodation. As Lia said, shortage of rental stock. So we will on a customized basis respond to our clients' needs and connect them with very well respected property managers to provide them with that hands-off solution.
Russell Whitburn wants to know, he says, assume I invest and comply with all temporary resident requirements. After 5 years, if I have not passed the, is it Kippel A2? You'd know about that, Roy. Can I then renew the temporary residency every 2 years in perpetuity?
That's correct. That is correct.
In other words, the answer there is yes.
Marvin, I jumped in, but I know that's exactly what you can do. You can continue with a 2-year renewal while you look to get through the hoops. That option is available.
Thanks for the answer there, because we have many other questions that need answering too. What about the impact? This is from Mervyn Pierce, about of possible excluding of Lisbon and Porto from the Golden Visa program. I think you've answered that quite well. He adds there's a 350,000 euro minimum when in rural areas. Is that correct?
Roy, do you want to answer?
Yeah, so let's just go back to the previous question on the Porto and Lisbon exclusion. So in February, Parliament did vote to exclude Lisbon and Porto. But that's all they voted for. They didn't say when or how, etc. The news that came out thereafter was that they were going to reconvene in February 2021 to look at when they're going to initiate it. So like Malcolm said, they're getting their PH, which is their sectional title register, in August, September. And the minute you're in the system, the minute you've applied for your golden visa, it's immaterial when they exclude Lisbon and Porto, you're in the system, you qualify. This might only be if, for instance sake, they say, listen, July next year, that's when we're excluding these properties, then you wouldn't be able to qualify. But like Lia said, and I've been reading the news in Portugal, this COVID came at the wrong time for Portugal, and a lot of what they were thinking they were going to do into the future is they're going to have to rethink it, and it seems like they're going to put a stop on that exclusion, and that's going to carry on until further notice.
Well, if they're only meeting in early next year, then I think you've kind of answered that question quite comprehensively. But there's another one that says, are you planning any developments outside of Lisbon and Porto?
We're not at this point in time. We're very excited about Lisbon. We think Lisbon's got major legs. We've got 2 projects lined up in a beautiful place called Marvilla, which I'd like Brad just to talk to briefly, which we'll be bringing to market later this year, Marvilla 1, in about October, November, depending on how quickly normality comes back into Portugal. But our interest in Lisbon is long-term. It's not about one project, I think. Brad, you want to add to that? You're on mute.
I'm the rookie here, clearly. The Marvilla project is a great project. We're in the planning phase, and we are planning to launch in October, as Malcolm alluded to. We also have another phase that follows that shortly, probably in a year's time after that. So we've got about 167 units that we want to bring to book in Marvilla, and it's a great up-and-coming area. The entry price will be a little different to where we're sitting right now, but we're very excited about launching that project at the end of the year.
Mike Tutoy asks, there's a first world health care system. My understanding is that one should take out private medical aid, as the national health system in Portugal has limitations. How costly is private medical aid, and is it right? Is the health system not first world?
So I think Bradley should answer this because he just recently had a baby in Portugal.
I did indeed, and you can go the public health system. It's very good. You can go the private health system. If you're comparing it to a medical aid scheme that we have in South Africa, I can tell you right now it is a lot cheaper than Discovery, for example, in South Africa. I'm on a private medical aid, and as Roy mentioned, my son was born here on the 24th of December last year, and we were very happy with the service that we got from the hospital. So that's the route we went, but I know a lot of my colleagues that I share an office with are on the normal public health system, and it works very, very well.
Edward Duplessis wants to know, what do legal costs approximate over the duration of the 5-year process? My understanding, he says, is that the renewal process as well as other admin costs are very high. There are also a number of administrative delays on the Portuguese government side over the past few years. Has this improved?
So it's an important question. We have got various attorneys and service providers that offer the cradle to grave service to our clients on the Golden Visa. One sort of a benchmark is around about 50,000 euros for a family of 4 over the 5-year period is what you're looking at, all fees, including attorneys' fees and statutory fees that get paid. But in terms of delays, I think it's fair to say that for South Africans, and I don't want to say anything disrespectful, particularly when my partner Lia's listening to me, Portuguese people are extremely non-aggressive and helpful and honest, but they perhaps on balance don't have the same sense of urgency that we have. Sometimes I think they just, because they're far more evolved than we are, they understand there are more things to life than rushing around madly. But we would argue that with the right service providers, any administrative delays become a non-issue. It'll work for you. You'll get everything done on time. You'll get your applications in, your biometric interview, etc., and you'll get that interim residency permit as prescribed in the rules, and finally in 5 years' time permanent residence. There's so many. 4.8 billion euros has flown into Portugal since the inception of the program, all on the back of golden visa buyers.
There's another question on the golden visa. Can you give us an approximate idea of agents' fees in addition to the government published fees for the golden visa process?
So an agent would be one of those service providers, Alec, and they range anything from 5,000 to about 15,000 euros is a standard fee, depending on how many people in the family and who the applicant is. So my figure that I quoted just now of the 50,000 included all fees, these agency fees, the attorney fees, and the statutory fees that one pays upfront and on renewal every other year.
Danita asked if the slides will be available. Most definitely, Danita, they'll be up on the BizNews site and I'm sure on the New World site as well, the whole webinar. Paul De Karma asks, he says, not sure if this has been asked before because I got booted off the webinar and I'm just back in. Sorry, Paul. Will the development allow short-term rentals outside of the rental pool?
Brad, do you want to pick that up?
Yes, it's very well governed, the short-term rental program in Portugal, and you have to actually apply for separate licenses. So all of the units that are in the 650 and below, from the rental guarantee point of view, we will obviously get those licenses on behalf of the purchaser. If you then want to do a short-term rental on your apartment that's not in our pool, you will have to now go apply for that license and get that special license to run it yourself. But it is possible, and by law, we're not allowed to stop you from being able to do it.
Malcolm, can you just give us your website, please, where you can view the properties on offer?
Certainly. It's www.lxliving.com.
There we go,
Alex?
George Ware. Yeah, that's George Ware's question. I'll put it in there as well. So it's www.lxliving.com. Brilliant. Okay, that's sent to all. That feels like Michael McIntyre. Will all the slides be available? Yes, they will be after the webinar. David Lewis says, which are the banks, the Portuguese banks that are represented in South Africa?
Roy?
So we have Millennium Bank is here, Santander, which is actually a Spanish bank, but they acquired one of the biggest banks in Portugal. I think it was BPI. So they are here. I believe the Portuguese state bank called Caixa. They are on the verge of opening up a representation office. And most of them are situated around the Bruma area in Johannesburg. So that's where their representation offices are.
So can I just add to that, Alec, because it's a useful question. So if we talk about banks, we've got the bank that our clients need to invest into Portugal. And Roy has got a great relationship with the rep office in Bruma, which is covering the whole of our country. We're able to get a bank account for our clients within max, Roy, 2 weeks. They're getting a Portuguese bank account open, which allows the flow of money into Portugal in terms of the golden visa requirements or any other client requirement. When it comes to end user finance, then we're looking to mobilize Lia's skill working with Roy. Roy's going to be spending more and more time in Lisbon in the near future, but will continue to have a foot in our country as a South African resident. But Lia is incredibly well positioned with all the banks, will provide a mortgage broking role, as she mentioned earlier, able to access 30-year money right now at a fixed rate of 1% and a floating rate of 80 bips. And 5 or 6 major banks in Lisbon, in Portugal, are, Lia will help our clients get the best result depending on their specific requirements.
Tyron Nyland asks, why Lisbon versus a more exotic location like Cascais? Is that the correct pronunciation, Lia?
Yeah, over to you. That's where Lia is right this moment.
Well, I must confess that I will try to be independent. I'll do my best, but it's hard. Living in Cascais, which actually is a 20-minute drive from LX, so I mean very, very close. This is called the Portuguese Riviera, and that's where you have all the fancy restaurants and all the nice beaches for surfers also. And this is football and surf are the 2 national sports. Obviously, with Cristiano Ronaldo, it's very difficult to bring in the surf, but basically these are the 2 sports. And this Cascais is actually a more, I would say, tranquil, if that word exists, I don't know, but a more easygoing place than Lisbon, because Lisbon's got a lot of offices, and Cascais has got, for you to have an idea, around Cascais you have 13 golf courses. So this gives you the relaxed atmosphere of the place. Plus, the first ever James Bond book was written in Hotel Palácio in Estoril.
Okay.
I would share that with you.
Neil Hayward wants to know, what are the monthly levies?
The monthly levies, what the big plus for us in Portugal and in our project is we don't have the problem of security. If you take the average gated complex in South Africa, 70% of your levy has to do with the security, the fellows who man the gate, etc. So we're relatively looking at very much less expensive levies. On all the homework we've done, Alec, it converts to about €2 per square meter per month. So 1 bed unit, let's call it at 65 square meters, would be €130 a month would be the levy, give or take. And in the context of what we're talking about at LX Living, on people earning 4%, the levy and the rates and taxes, which is 0.3% of municipal value, accounts for 0.5% of the income. So you're left with, after costs, 3.5% income, which I think is a great result. The levy is not a material number.
Mark Feitelberg wants to know, can one work in Europe before one gets the passport?
Roy?
Yes, you can. So what the Portuguese government doesn't want is for people to be in Portugal without having a job. So the minute that you have a job in Portugal and you can prove to the Portuguese authorities that you are self-sustaining, that you aren't going to rely on government handouts to live there, you are allowed to stay there. So you can.
Genevieve Gundelfinger wants to know, is there rent control in Portugal?
So the only rent control that exists in Portugal, and Lia, maybe you can correct me, is every year that your lease increases, there's government stipulates the percentage that you're allowed to increase your rental by. And it's really, I mean, compared to South Africa on what we do, our rental increases normally anywhere between 6 to 10%. I think in Portugal, it's negligible, your increase. It's like 0.8, 2%, etc. So it's really important that you get a good lawyer to do your rental contracts. I'm not sure, Lia, if you are allowed to stipulate a rental increase higher than the government stipulated value.
That will only, that will only happen in commercial leases. In commercial contracts, then the contract can stipulate how the rent is going to increase. In residential contracts, the government publishes every year how much the tenant can increase the rent, and it's not usually, it doesn't reach 50 bps. It's like 0.0 something. It's very, very low. It's very,
Very low
very
increase.
low.
Yeah.
Charles Moore wants to know, he says, what if, say, two unrelated parties invest together? How then is the golden visa allocated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the bottom line is that for a golden visa applicant to be approved, he or she has got to invest 500,000 euros in a property. I don't know, Roy and Lia, if you've had a partnership or two people investing $1 million in one apartment, would they both have a basis to apply for a visa? Yes or no?
Do you want to answer?
Yeah. Look, personally, I'll have to pass on that question. I haven't dealt with a situation like that, so I wouldn't want to, in this forum, give an answer. But if Lia, if you are aware,
Yes, I can answer that. The golden visa's got a principle, which is the individual. So individual and its family. Okay, what you can do, it's because the money can come in and has to come in. You can go up to the 1 million, okay, and have the 1 million invested in a bank and in a Portuguese bank. But I don't think that you can be two different people. You have to somehow be related or prove that you're, somehow related in some way.
But I think
So I would say no. I would say that
we would take the specific requirement that's underpinning this question and run it past our experts and find a way to achieve the end result. I'm sure we wouldn't have a problem.
We're coming close to the end now, and we really are not even going to get close to finishing all the questions, unfortunately. But this is a follow-up, if you like, from Steve Swart, who says, you said family members are included. Is there an age limit for dependents?
So I can answer that as quickly as possible, Alec. The question of dependent is if it's a child, as if they're still being schooled or at tertiary education, provided they fall into that category, the age is less of an issue. Obviously, if your child is 40 and he's still going to university, there'll be a big question mark. But generally, kids of 25 and below, provided they can show proof that they're still being educated, they will be classified, still as dependents. They will form part of the family. But it extends the other way as well. Is if you as the applicant have an aging parent who's 65 and beyond, there's every possibility that your parent could be, or parents could become part of your application as a dependent. So the dependency goes up and down. And again, the experts will look at the particular family situation and advise on the best way to achieve the end result, being obviously you'd want 500,000 euro spend to trigger as many folks accessing the passport under that one applicant as dependents.
I'm afraid this is going to have to be our last question because we have reached the end of the hour. It's from Julian Moscow, who says, can Standard Bank South Africa offshore be used for a loan rather than the banks mentioned? And I guess a similar question for First Rand offshore, RMB offshore, Investec, etc.
So if the question is just about accessing finance for an investment in, to leverage an investment in Portugal, the answer has to be that the bank will obviously advise the particular individual. From the point of view of a visa, most importantly, though, it's got to be 500,000 euros of fresh capital that comes into the country. On the back of that, gearing can be sought, and Lia's well placed to assist our clients on that basis.
I'm going to ask one more question because I think this is very relevant, and then you guys can each just give us a little wrap up. It's from Charles Moore. He says, if one is retired, what do you have to show to prove that you will not be a burden on the state?
Yeah. You're on mute.
Sorry. I think the first thing that you have to do is show your bank statements showing the Portuguese government that will not be depending on the national system. That I would say this is the first thing.
And you know, we if I can just add to what you're saying, Lia, I mean, we've heard that if you show as little as 30 or 40,000 euros in your bank account, you might be okay. We would say that's not clever. At the end of the day, if you've made the investment of 500,000 euros, you've got the temporary and then finally permanent residency. That's the better way to go. There's no question. Then you have absolute right to claim all the benefits as well that go with being a Portuguese resident.
Absolutely, and also if you're retired, and I must say that we have always been the retirement place for Northern Europeans, and as you all know, Northern Europeans have high standards of health and so on, and I think it will just fine.
Well, thank you, Lia.
Plus you have 300 days of sunshine in a year, so I think, how good does that get?
Thank you, Lia. Roy, Bradley, Malcolm, over to you for your final wrap-up.
Yeah, thank you, Alec. It's been a great pleasure and wonderful that we've had so many questions and so many people coming along to listen. We'd love to continue the conversation with the business community, and I've no doubt that between us, we'll make sure that we keep that conversation going and put people in touch with one of our team here or in Cape Town or in Lisbon to deal specifically with the requirements of a potential investor in Portugal.
What we will do from our side is send the team, well, through Malcolm, all of the questions that have not been answered. So I'm sure you can expect to get direct responses to that. Well, it's been really interesting, this webinar on offshore investing, in particular looking at property and a development in Portugal. Bradley, I'm sorry that we weren't able to have the tour that you'd so carefully planned for us, but we did see a little bit and hear a little bit on that, and I'm sure that in future you can put together a really nice video for us that we can maybe include in this presentation. Okay, guys, well, thanks for the participation today. Until the next time, cheerio.
Thank you, Eric.